All right, good evening, everybody. We'll get started here. I'm going to try to keep this as brief and as informative as possible. There's some key components we have to go through since we're doing a season that's never really existed before. This is our fall 2 season, and we are offering the sports that were not previously allowed to be run. That is our varsity football, varsity cheer. We have indoor track running, and indoor track is being run outdoors this year. That's a little bit different, and we also have our volleyball teams running as well. So we're excited to have an opportunity for some of these sports that were deemed high risk to get a chance to participate. It's a little bit different time of the year for football and volleyball and track, but we're going to make the best of it and make sure that the kids have a good. So I'd just like to welcome everybody. Those of you that don't know me, my name is Dan Statmiller. I'm the athletic director here at Jordan Elbridge. Joining us today is Mr. Mark Schermerhorn, high school principal. So he's also here, and as you know, he was previously in this role prior to me arriving here. So up there's my contact information. We've been very active on social media and through text messaging, trying to keep people as up to date as we can. Especially this winter season where spectators were not permitted at many events. So that is where I share a lot of information, daily feeds to where the streams will be, and any updates that people might need on the fly. So those things are there. Definitely encourage you to follow them. My email is up there. I check my email frequently, so that's a great way to get in contact as well. So some of the stuff is repetitive. If you've had a child in a sport already this year or in the previous years, you will have heard a lot of this before, but it is important every year. Some of the stuff is new, and that pertains mostly to the COVID protocol. So we did welcomes and introductions. Some things that remain the same. Family ID is our main hub to sign up, so kids need to sign up through that. And also have to have a current physical on file. That has been different this year because of COVID. They have honored the physical for the past 3 school years. So this school year, actually, I should say 2 school years. This current school year, the school year prior, and then the one even prior to that. So pretty much if they've played a sport in the last year or so at JE, they are likely good with a physical. That expires on the 30th of April. So if you do have a child that is not a senior, is going to participate again next year, they are going to need another physical. So if you want to get ahead, I know some doctors' offices are booking out months in advance for those things. I would get on the horn and try to schedule a summer physical as soon as possible. So that's a little bit different. On Family ID, there were some additional things and tabs you had to sign and consent to. One of them was informed consent, basically acknowledging that, these are high risk sports. There is a higher risk of contracting COVID, although the data is overwhelmingly supportive that does not happen. There is still a risk, which is why it is a high risk sport. That is on there. And there's also a consent to test. We test our students weekly here. Onondaga County provides us with 250 tests each week. We are able to swab the kids every Monday morning. So it is really important that the kids are here on Mondays. That is when I have the staffing to do that testing. So if they miss the test, it does become problematic for us to make that up. It's not something that we can just do. And there's a lot of data that needs to be submitted to the county. So we really, really, really have to have those kids here Monday mornings. We start testing at 7:30 and we go till about 9. Okay, so it's really, really important that they are here for that. Something else new this year, and we're getting the kids in the habit of it. Every practice, they have to fill out a daily health screening, and this is a requirement of the Onondaga County Health Department. It will help us with contact tracing should there be a case. And it also certifies that the kids are healthy. And I do have to send this to other districts that our kids are all screened and healthy before they go and compete. So that is really important. And again, we've had a issue in each season so far with the COVID case popping up. And, it probably won't be the last time. So it's important that we follow these protocols and are able to contact trace appropriately. The pink forms, some kids should be bringing these pink forms home to you. There's a picture here in the bottom right. Name, age, date of birth, has parent and guardian. This is if there was ever an emergency where we had to call EMS to transport a kid. This card goes with them and it has all important information so that they can get in touch with you, insurance and things like that. So those cards are important. They get turned in at the end of the year to our athletic trainer and are shredded. But those are really important, and they need to be returned to the coaches as soon as possible. Some things that have been longstanding here that I'm sure a lot of you are aware, but we do have policies in our handbook on the chain of command and 24-hour rule. So when issues arise, we're really trying to train our high school students to take on a more proactive role in their educational careers. And when there's issues, we really want them to be problem solvers and advocate for themselves. So, a lot of times if I get a call, the first thing I'm going to say is, has the kid talked to the coach yet? If the answer is yes, I'm going to say, have you talked to the coach yet? At that point, if you have not, I will direct you back to talk to the coach. And at that point, I'll get involved if there is still not resolved. Obviously, there's exceptions to every rule. If there's some things that are dangerous or excessive policy violations, those are things I obviously want to know about. But if there are team issues at the team level, I really want to keep those at the team level until they escalate to something that where I would need to get involved. A lot of times the coaches and parents work it out. Um, I want to have the coaches have some input on those things as well. Items I tell my coaches that they don't need to discuss. Coaches' strategy and play calling. Those are why we hire the coach. I do evaluate those things at the end of each season, but when we do a year appointment of a coach, that is their job and their decisions on how they do that. Playing time and a big thing is other students. I know a lot of times there's issues that involve other students, but I do instruct our coaches, legally they cannot discuss other students. So they will only discuss your student with you. So as you know, we've run a different schedule this school year, which has changed things up a little bit. The high school dismisses at 1:35 and the middle school dismisses at 2:30. So we can practice a little bit earlier. It so happens that a lot of our coaches can't really take advantage of this season because a lot of them are out of district employees. So I know a lot of our practices are starting later for 4:30, for example. I believe football's at 3:30. I believe the only sport that starts a little bit earlier is indoor track, and they're at like 2:30. So um, if kids want to stay after school for a bit of time, they can. We do have a sports study hall here at the high school, and they can stay till roughly 3:30 here. That is a long time considering we dismiss at 1:30. That's 2 hours that they're here. So we have encouraged the kids, if they can get a ride home with an adult or take the bus and return safely, we are okay with that. We don't want them just hopping and piling in cars with people. Obviously, that's, you know, with COVID, we don't want really kids piling unmasked in cars either. So they do have an opportunity to stay here, and they can come back if they want. It's up to them. Some other things, this is frustrating for a lot of our kids. I know due to restrictions and the shortness of the season, it's only 6 weeks. We will not have postseason championships this year. They are placed in divisions and pods, so we will have division champions and things like that. And individual awards will be given as usual, our first team, second team, and honorable mention. So, when the kids say there's nothing to play for, there's still a lot to play for. And again, a lot of these sports are going to turn around and be right back in season in just a few months. So it's almost like a preseason as well, with some games and getting ready for the fall season to turn around. So the dates that this season will run for JV and varsity started yesterday, and they will run through 4/16, so April 16th. With the exception of football, that will run to the 21st. A lot of people have had questions about spring sports. Will this overlap? Can I do both? The answer is kind of. Spring sports are slated to start April 19th. So for the most part, with the exception of football, that will be over and they will be able to roll right into their next seasons if they do another sport. So I know a lot of people come to mind, all right, football ends the 21st. That's a Wednesday. Are they going to miss 3 days of lacrosse? Well, yes, they will. However, those practices that they use for football can count towards their lacrosse practices. We can count up to 4 of them per New York State rules. So shouldn't be an issue there. They'll be able to finish out football and roll right into lacrosse. The modified season, I know this is only a JV and varsity meeting, but you may have siblings and such that are in the lower levels. That will start after break, April 5th, and I will be sending out more details about that. And it will run through about May 8th, but I think we're going to trim that date up a little bit because we're really trying to prevent kids having a lot of overlap. As I said earlier, there's no culminating events for this season. Culminating events do return next season in the spring. If you saw today on the news, I know Syracuse.com put out a blurb that sectionals will return for spring sports. So that is exciting. Some normalcy seems to be coming back quick, and we are definitely excited about that. Unlike the previous season in winter, we did not schedule weekends due to the quarantining rules. We didn't want to have to unnecessarily quarantine people because we know, I think Mr. Ferreira said we've quarantined like 700 people and not one of them has gotten sick. We didn't want to have to quarantine people because of things over the weekend because we test on Monday. So when we tested Monday, if they weren't together Sunday or Saturday, we wouldn't have to quarantine anybody. But the quarantine guidelines then have since changed. Um, and with some of these sports, we cannot avoid going weekends, football in particular, because they need 10 practices before their first contest. So we are opening up weekends again, and the kids will participate. We are bringing up the locker room use again. Um, the high school locker rooms will be open. They can use 8 at a time in the high school locker rooms. And then for the football field, they will be utilizing both sides of the field house to socially distance. I believe they have about 30 students on the football roster, and they will use both sides of the locker room so that they can socially distance. So we did not do that in the fall, really, or fall or spring, really, or I'm sorry, fall or winter. But we are going to expand those things as the rates continue to go down. The sideline rules, kids still need to be 6 feet apart. I know it seems kind of crazy. These kids are bumping into each other, tackling each other, and then we got to go separate them on the side. I understand, it doesn't make sense, but we're trying to eliminate any unnecessary risk. Obviously, the sport by nature, these are higher risk sports and they will have contact, but if we can limit the distance when we can, we're going to do that. We ask them to stay 6 feet apart on the sidelines and keep their bags 6 feet apart as well. We ask that they don't do celebrations that involve a lack of social distancing as well. Face coverings, one of the biggest changes you'll notice, they have to wear a face covering right now. It is an OHSL rule. We encourage them to wear it at all times, even when they are socially distant, just to be safe. We will have mask breaks built in to a lot of the contests. And again, I've met with the kids as well, and I talk to each team, and if you've seen any of the other sporting events, a lot of times they'll walk away, pull it below their nose, get a breath, put it back up. Our kids have been phenomenal, and I can tell you this by other ADs have called and said, they appreciate us not having to be on mask patrol the entire time. And I can tell you, having other schools come in here, it is a daunting task. We do become the mask police sometimes, and believe me, I don't like doing that. So kudos to our kids and our coaches. I got a lot of compliments on our kids. So we do need to keep moving forward with that. I know football is going to have some different face masks that will allow their mouth guard to go through. And it has a little flap that'll cover because they have to wear the mouthpieces as well. So coaches, bench players, everyone else will have to have a mask on as well. Again, I said it's recommended that each athlete have an individual bag. They shouldn't be sharing their bags and putting belongings together for the time being. And, the face coverings that are worn need to be of basic color, display. It can be an Under Armour, a Nike mask, but the league is asked not to have personal agenda messages scribed onto masks and stuff like that, as we are a school district and we do remain neutral on those things. Again, I talked about the health screenings a little bit, so a little bit more in depth. Every kid has to be screened, so there's a couple ways they can do this. Our athletic trainer, Rebecca DeMario, has made some QR codes that are posted everywhere around the athletic complex, in the gyms, and they'll be down at the stadium shortly as well. The coaches each have one. If they have a badge, they have a little QR code that goes in the back of their badge that kids can scan. And if you don't have a cell phone or you don't have a device, that's okay too. Right on our website, the athletics website, I put a link to that as well. And I actually encourage kids just to screen in their last mod of the class while they're on their Chromebook before they close up for the day. Go in, click, do your symptom sheet, and be done. So again, I have to make sure that the health screening is done for each kid before traveling, that they've all had their temperatures checked as well. We have temperature gauges pretty much at every entrance, so the kids have been great about that as well. And again, all athletes, we are COVID testing on Mondays. We do that right at the events entry. If you have a remote student, they need to come up between 7:30 and 9 o'clock to get a test. And then for the rest of the kids, we call them down by team in the morning. So the Onondaga County is recommending that you do athlete tests. We test our managers, our coaches, our officials. Anyone that is involved with the game is tested. I am tested. Our trainer is tested. The scoreboard person is tested. So we test everybody that's going to be at that facility that is working and could be in close contact with anyone, especially athletes. They recommend PCR tests, but that's the one that's the brain tickler, we call it. We don't do those. We do the antigen rapid tests, and they are conducted via our school nurses and athletic trainers, and that has gone smoothly. We've had a couple positives pop up, and of course, mostly asymptomatic, and we take the appropriate steps from there. But again, making sure that we can keep the season rolling and doing it safely. I think Becca jumped on. She is our athletic trainer. She has an office at both the school and the stadium. She primarily will see students in the afternoon. Remember, although she's extremely talented, and I trust her thoroughly, she is not a primary care doctor. So if she recommends that you take someone to the doctor, it is really important that you do that. Okay. One of the biggest things we have are students failing to report injuries. There's a lot of paperwork that goes into that. We have to file an accident report. We have school insurance as well that needs to be notified. So if there is an accident or a kid is hurt, or even if it's just a little nagging injury, it's important that we know they talk to their coaches and the coaches let Becca know. So we make sure that, nothing serious. Doesn't turn into anything serious. It starts out as a mild quad injury, and then all of a sudden we've got a tear of a quad. So it's good to know those things. Her schedule is posted. The kids typically know where she is. Concussions, one of the big things, obviously, that we see a lot of. And we err on the side of caution. So when in doubt, we leave them out. A lot of times, Becca will refer them to a doctor. The doctor will clear them, and the kid thinks, yes, I can come back right away. Well, it's not in New York State's eyes. That's not okay. They have to do a return to play protocol that typically lasts about 5 days. So that is a process, unfortunately. But again, safety first. Similar to the concussion protocol, there is a COVID infection return to play protocol. And we've been kind of tracking kids down this week. If a kid has a COVID infection or has had a COVID infection, they do need to be cleared from their doctor before they can resume. And then there is a return to play protocol that basically monitors their cardiovascular activity. As I'm sure you've seen on the news, there's some issues, particularly with youth, with some cardiac related issues after a COVID infection. And again, it's just not particular to COVID, but a lot of viruses. But we've seen it more prevalent with COVID. So we do want the doctor to release them and make sure that they don't require any cardiovascular screening or anything of that nature. So Becca's email is there. If there's ever an injury or anything like that, she will reach out to you. Some basic stuff that is, if you've had a kid and an athlete in before, you've probably heard a lot of this, but stuff that has to be gone over. One of the policies people just seem to never be aware of is a quitting policy that we have. If a student or athlete participates in 15 or more practices or games and decides that they quit, they're ineligible for half of the next season's contests. So I bring that up particularly because we've had some issues before, and this happened with football a few years ago. They were eliminated from sectionals, and the kids didn't feel like finishing out the season and wanted to start working on another sport, and they just quit the team. It's like, well, you can't do that or you're going to be ineligible. So I mentioned that because we do have an overlap at the end of this season, and they need to finish out that season. If they stop coming, they will be considered quitting and they'll be ineligible for lacrosse. So, we just want kids to honor their commitments. If they're there that long, they need to finish it out. Next, with some code of conduct. So if anyone is involved in any form of bullying, there is subject to disciplinary measures. And again, it depends on the length of which it went on, the circumstances. Every investigation, is a little bit different. But some of these can include, but are not solely limited to, suspension from practices, games, or contests, suspension from school, dismissal from team, and dismissal from the athletic or curricular program. So speaking of being kicked off the team, I should note that quitting policy does apply to if a coach kicks them off the team as well. Other code of conduct violations regarding mostly substance abuse. I'm not going to read it all, but you see I have electronic cigarettes, e-cigarettes, vapes, whatever we want to call them, underlined. That's been something that's been a hot topic, and as well as alcohol for our students. Um, so if they are involved in these or have these things or are using them, regardless if it's in school or out of school, it is a code of conduct violation and they will be subject to discipline. And I will talk about that in just a minute. We have vape detectors in the high school. They do go off. We do search kids. We know that kids have been hiding vapes, and you don't want to know some of the places that we found some vapes, but the kids will hide them at all costs, and we will try to find them. They're hiding them in the bathrooms and things like that so that they don't have them, but we are tracking them. And these things are not good for these kids, especially athletes. So we do have a metal detector as well that we will use to scan kids because the vapes have lithium batteries, which will make the vape or the metal detector go off. So I clicked ahead a little bit there, but too with the alcohol and drugs, we've had a surge of things coming into us on social media, kids posting things and thinking that no one will see them. We do see them. People will bring them to us, will randomly email them to us. We had a group of some students that had some pictures posted recently we've had to talk to. Again, have a conversation with your kids about what they're posting on social media. A lot of times they think it's private or it's not, but nothing's ever private on social media. So please, please, please have a conversation. If we have pictures of kids using or abusing drugs or alcohol during their time as an athlete, they are subject to the code of conduct violations. First offense is a 7 calendar day suspension from athletics. They will have to meet with an alcohol and drug counselor if that was involved, and they will have to have a re-entry meeting with staff. Second offense, they're suspended for the season. Again, alcohol and drug counselor support, which is our high school counseling staff. And a third offense is a permanent suspension from the athletic programs. And again, these are not just during a season. These are not just during a school year. These are all during your enrollment as a JE student. Okay. Spectators. I know everyone's wondering about this because the winter sports, we did not have spectators. We are going to get a little bit more lenient here. Events are going to be limited to 2 spectators per athlete. This includes our indoor and outdoor events. There will be a spectator badge. I know if you had a student in the fall sports season, you had little OHSL passes that you had to carry in your wallet. I'm stealing an idea from West Hill. They actually put them on little lanyards. Just throw them right around your neck and you wear them. That shows that you're allowed to be there. So that's how we're going to check those people in. We haven't quite determined if they're going to have to screen or how we're going to do this yet. But there will be some sort of sign-in procedure just in the event that there is contact tracing that needs to be done. So I will get that out to the community ahead of time, or they will just be able to do it at the gate. So we are allowing spectators and coaches. Again, will have some spectator passes as well, so their families can come to the game. We had a lot of success with YouTube Live. We had a couple little hiccups. One of the cords came unplugged on a camera when someone stepped on it. But other than that, it ran pretty seamlessly. The quality was good. We had HD cameras, and we will continue to stream those events because we know that some people have more than 2 family members that want to see the games. So we will continue to stream them. The links are posted on our athletics website, and we will continue to do that. But that has gone well so far. So we're pretty excited about that. And then senior nights will occur. We're going to allow 2 guests, obviously, and they will accompany their senior onto the court or the field for photos and speeches. We allowed pictures and things like that to happen, so we loosened that a little bit more as things have improved. One of the big changes the kids noticed yesterday, they got to have their own water. We don't have the water caddies out, especially at football. They're not going to be all drinking out of the same water bottle. I know at the Friday night football games, you see the youth players running out with the water caddies and spraying water in everyone's mouth. It's going to be a little different this year. Every kid's going to have their own water bottle. We will have some water jugs available with hand sanitizer nearby, but it really is going to be beneficial to them if they just bring their own water for the entire practice and games. Some important dates. We are firing back up sports boosters meetings. We meet on the second Monday of each month. We had gone dormant for a little bit because we haven't had a ton of activity. Obviously, most of our fundraising comes from concessions. And at this point, it doesn't look like any of those restrictions will be lifted on concessions. So they will continue to remain closed. But we do have some important events coming up, especially if you have senior athletes. You might want to get involved. We're going to be talking about how we're going to celebrate the senior class of athletes. We have some ideas. But we're definitely going to need some support. We honestly only get about 4 people that come each month, and a lot of these people our kids are aging out of our athletics programs, and then it's just going to be me. So I really, really, if you want to get involved and have some involvement in how athletics play out here, this is a great venue to get involved with. Obviously the date we already started, you don't need that, but picture day is going to be, I believe the 23rd is next Thursday. I'm off the top of my head, I'll have to look, but they have pictures. A schedule will follow. The kids will have their jerseys and such by then. They're not going to have their pictures with their masks on. We're doing it a green screen, and then we are cropping the teams together, so we still get a team photo. Again, I told you modified sports start after spring break, and then the date I want everyone to look at there is April 28th, and of course, I'll send some reminders as this gets closer about the winter and fall 2 varsity sports awards. Right now, it's looking like that will be all digital. Depends on the weather. If we get something nice, we are looking at starting to use our stadium for some of these events. So to be determined on that. But right now, I would say it will probably be all digital. I'm just going to focus on the JV and varsity philosophy right now. Again, varsity winning is, the most important of considerations out of the 3 levels. And the kids are going to be putting their best foot forward. The coaches will be putting their best foot forward. So the playing time is never a guarantee. We only have 1 JV team this year, and that's JV volleyball. And I'm just going to put it out there. We got 26 kids right now that want to play JV volleyball. And that's, I am a person that is anti-cut, but I don't see how we carry 26 kids on a JV volleyball team. So I'm going to be working with the coach on that. We're going to try to keep as many kids involved as we possibly can. The last thing I want to do is turn away a kid from extracurriculars, especially during a pandemic. We want kids involved, but I mean, if the sport of volleyball, it is impossible to keep 26. So we may work on having some practice players. We'll probably have to reduce it by a few. And some of these kids, I'm going to be honest with you, there are kids that might get on the team or be on the practice team that might not play in any games, because the substitution in volleyball is not like, basketball where you can get them in and out. There's a pretty strict rotation on how they do that. So just trying to be on the forefront and be honest with you. I'm meeting with the coaches. Was at the varsity practice today and spoke with coach, and I'll be shooting over to the JV practice if I get done in time to check on what's going on. So that is where we are at with that. Eligibility is a big one. The marking period ended Friday, so I will be reviewing grades. Any student that failed 2 or more classes or has an incomplete in 2 or more classes will be on academic probation. Basically, what they need to do every week throughout the season is on Fridays, these forms will be due. They have to turn them in for each class that they are failing. I will meet with each kid later this week and let them know that they're on academic probation. And I will also shoot an email to the parent confirming that they're on academic probation. If you don't hear anything from me, they're good to continue going. After that, I will call you if they become ineligible. Okay, so they have to be performing satisfactory in all those classes. Doesn't mean they have to be passing, but they need to be trying, seeking extra help, and completing the work. We're never going to hold out a kid that's busting their butt and trying, but just not making the mark. So this policy is in place to keep kids that are working hard involved. We talked about bullying. So the big one I want to talk about here, all students need to be in school on time. We typically give the kids a little nudge on the shoulder when they're late one time. Hey, you got to be here on time. But when it continually happens, they are ineligible for that day. So again, especially important on Mondays because we do the COVID testing. Wrapping up here with transportation, we are providing transportation to all events. We do encourage you to drive them yourself if you would like, because again, it minimizes contact time on the bus. However, athletes are not allowed to drive themselves to away contests. We're not really encouraging carpooling at this point. I'm not going to tell you how to live your life outside of here, but obviously with COVID, the less contacts, the better. Um, Again, if you are going to transport your student, we just ask that you fill out a transportation form, and I'm going to show you what that looks like on the next slide here, and return it to the coach. The coaches all have copies of this. And the buses have a maximum capacity of 22, and that includes coaches. So we will have to possibly take 2 buses for some events. I know the football team right there, it might even be 3 buses with equipment. So we're going to have to space out a little bit. JV and varsity in terms of volleyball, we're probably going to have them travel separate. If we can fit them all on one bus, we will. But we do try to minimize contact time as much as possible. Instead, so they're not sitting at the JV or watching the varsity game with the JVs sitting there watching. So we do try to space that out, but we'll be communicating with the kids, and the bus times will be on the schedule as well. So we do have to social distance, and masks have to be worn on the bus. The bus is a germ box. It's closed in. It's still cold out, so we're not going to want all the windows open. It is really important that the kids and coaches all have their masks on the entire time, or else we won't transport. And we have had issues with that prior. They will not be stopping for food or drinks this year. I know that the kids enjoy that stuff. Unfortunately, it just doesn't fit in with the protocols that we have in place. So if they have to get a drink on the bus, that's one thing. But put your mask back up after you get the drink. This is what the form looks like. All the coaches have it. You can download it right on our website as well. The parent's name, student's name at the high school, and you can put the people that are authorized to transport your kid to and from. And again, they need to be responsible adult over the age of 18. We have a lot of brand new uniforms. I know volleyballs are ones that come to mind in particular for this season, and actually indoor tracks are new as well. The Under Armour jerseys are sublimated, so they should not be dried or have fabric softener. A lot of these jerseys are warranted. So if they do become damaged, ripped, something happens, please bring it to my office, and I can a lot of times get them replaced at no cost to the district. So don't hide it from us. Bring it to us. We can most likely get them taken care of. Failure to result in return uniforms, we do bill for that, so you will have to pay the price of the uniform. And they aren't cheap, so please make sure you get those back to us. And again, students that have negative debt, so if we send a bill and it's not paid, they do keep track of that, they cannot participate in graduation activities with any negative debt to the district. Last slide I have today, with accordance of the health department, each district has to establish a dedicated phone number and email address for parents. So if you believe there are COVID violations occurring, they are to be reported directly to that email address there, covidviolation@jecsd.org. Of course, you can always email me. Those go to my inbox anyways, but that is what the county asks us to do. And then the extension for the COVID violation number is 1509. So that wraps up everything that I have. I would like to offer some questions if anybody has any. You can put them in the chat box if you don't feel like unmuting and speaking. I will go through those. I tried to keep it to about a half hour. I think we were about there after we got a little bit of a late start. And Becca has told me that March 23rd, the photo day, is Tuesday. So thank you for that, Becca. Does anybody have any questions on anything that I went over, or anything that you think that maybe I didn't cover that you're concerned about? Give you a minute or so. If you're all set and don't have any questions, you're more than welcome to log off. Again, this was taped, so I will be posting it to our website shortly after it downloads. So with that being said, I don't see any questions coming in. Again, as I told
Hey, Dan, I would like to add something.
Go
Can
ahead.
everyone hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah, so we have, right now we have our musical going on. We have indoor percussion and winter guard, and we have a handful of kids that are, they're in multi extracurricular activities. And talking with the kids throughout the day, from the beginning of school when they walk through the door till the end of the day. um, we're dealing with high school kids here, but at the same time, we have kids that walk in, especially with football being outside, they're not dressed for the conditions. So make sure the kids are outside, they're dressed for the conditions, they have extra clothes with them, they have their winter gear. Make sure they have water, make sure they have snacks, like healthy snacks. Some of our kids, they'll go without eating all day at the high school. We have lunch pretty early. Our first lunch period's at 10:16. So make sure the kids they have water, Gatorade, they're fueled up, protein bars, things like that, that they can just grab and go and eat before practice, because that will just, help them with practice. It'll help them mentally, physically. Their practice, it's like the ninth period of the day. It's like ninth period class. Especially, they have a little break in between. So just some food for thought. Just make sure the kids are all ready to go with their winter gear, and they have extra food and things. It's a long day for them. They start earlier than usual, and now they're going later than usual for practices and things. So just make sure that they have their bags packed the night before, and they're ready to rock and roll for a long day the next day. So and that's it. Thanks, Mr. Statmiller. If any of you need me, you know where to find me. Call me directly if you have any questions, or if you want to have a chat about eligibility or grades. Please call me directly. I welcome your phone calls, and I welcome your support. Thank you.
Yep. So a couple questions coming in. Indoor track practices Monday through Friday, yes, and it is from 2:30 to 4:30. So most of the kids, since it's at 2:30 and they get down to sports study hall about 1:45, they hang out here. They usually don't leave for that. Coach comes and gets them, and they practice till, I believe they're getting done at 4:30 today. So, and every day the coach will um, remind kids what the next day's schedule is. So. Yes, I will be around tomorrow. If you need someone's asking, yes, I am at the athletic office tomorrow. So I will be available here for pretty much most of the day. I have scheduling in the morning. Afternoon is the best time to get in touch with me tomorrow. Any weekend practices for indoor track? We are, that's going to be up to the coach. Typically, a varsity sport is a 6-day a week commitment. This year, I've really told them, weekends as needed. If you don't have to, don't do it. Just because less is more a lot of times with contact tracing and things like that, and the kids being together. But indoor track, funny enough, is an outdoor sport, so I don't worry about it much. So that will really be at the discretion of how the coach feels about that. But typically, a varsity sport does involve some weekend commitments. Yes. So again, I'd just like to thank everybody for jumping on tonight. Those of you that stuck with us, and as I tell the kids, we've got the go ahead to start. How we finish is up to us. The protocols work. Regardless if we like them or not. I have a kid in sports. I don't particularly love when there's no spectators and I can't be at something, but honestly, right now I'm just happy the kids are allowed to play because in January I didn't think there was any chance we would be sitting here today. So. Pretty pumped to see everybody back and welcome some spectators back. And everybody just remember when you're coming to the games, if you have your spectator pass, have a mask. And if you rode together, you can sit together. If not, we're going to social distance. So we'll be marking the bleachers and such for distancing. So again, I appreciate everyone's support. I know I talked to my colleagues around the Onondaga League, and not everyone has been as supportive with the spectators and the lack of through the winter season. And I have to say the community has been absolutely phenomenal and very supportive in everything. So really thank you for all of that. And we look forward one step closer to returning to somewhat of a normal sports here. So thank you, everybody. I'll get this posted. And if you have any questions, please just shoot me an email or give me a call. All right. Everybody have a good night.